How to make a lemon tea bread. Let's get into it. In a small bowl, crack 2 eggs. Slightly beat your eggs to break them up. Add half a cup of milk. Add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can either use fresh or store-bought. If you're going to use fresh, feel free to use the lemon rind as well. I'm using fresh, but I used the rinds for a different recipe already. Plus, personally, I don't like the rind in there, but it's up to you. Mix everything together until well combined. And when you're done, set it aside and grab yourself a large bowl. Add 2 cups of sifted flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, half teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of sugar. Stir everything together until well combined. Cut a half a cup of butter into tiny cubes. You want to use cold butter, not room temperature butter, by the way. Add all of your cubed butter into your flour mixture. Start cutting in your butter into your flour mixture. Basically, you take it with your hands and you just start squeezing it like this. You want them flat and tiny little pea sizes until it resembles dry sand, probably about this big, maybe a little bit smaller. Just keep going until all your butter is flattened and in small pieces like wet sand. Once all your butter and flour is mixed together and it resembles coarse sand and it crumbles together like this, you're going to carefully pour in and mix in your wet ingredients into your dry ingredients, being very careful not to overmix. Simply just take a rubber spatula, scoop underneath, and then just fold it over just like this. You want to be careful not to overmix, and just do this just until all of the flour is mixed in and everything is absorbed. When everything's carefully mixed together, we're going to put it to the side for a minute and grab our pans. Now this recipe is usually done in a loaf pan like this, but I'm not going to be using that one this time because I wanted to try it in a cake pan this time. You're going to grease the bottom as well as all 4 sides of your pan. Even if you are using a loaf pan, make sure you grease it. You can use pan spray, oil, flavorless oil, or butter, whatever you got. Then when you've greased your pan sufficiently, you're going to take about 2 tablespoons of flour, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on what you need, and start shaking your pan just a little bit. Make sure it gets all the way on the bottom, as well as on the sides of your cake pan, or your loaf pan, whichever you prefer. Try to use a little bit of flour at a time, but if you're like me and had a little too much extra in your pan, just toss it into the trash. Don't leave the extra in there. When you're done greasing and flouring your pan, you're going to take your batter and evenly spread it into your cake pan or your loaf pan as evenly as possible. If you're using a cake pan and you're finding it hard to spread it out evenly, spray your hands with a little bit of pan spray or a little bit of oil. It will help. The batter won't stick to your hands, or at least not as much. Now, if you've decided to use a loaf pan, you're going to bake it off at 350 degrees for about 45 to 55 minutes. If you decided to use a cake pan, I haven't really experimented with this yet, so I'm going to bake it off at 350 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes or until it comes out golden and brown. Either method you choose, you want golden brown edges and for it to be kind of pulled away a little bit from the edges as well. You can also use the toothpick method as well. And while our tea breads are in the oven, we're going to make our glaze. In a small bowl, you want to add a 1/4 cup of sugar and 3 tablespoons of fresh or store-bought lemon juice. Stir everything together until the sugar dissolves and everything is well combined. Then put the glaze aside until we're ready to use it. So if you're not going to use a loaf pan, my cake pan took about 20 to 30 minutes. When it's done, take it out of the oven. Get your glaze mixture, mix it up until it's nice and smooth one more time, just to make sure. And pour your glaze over your hot tea cake as evenly as possible. You can also spoon it over if you prefer, if you're worried about not being able to spread it as evenly as you want it to. You can also make more glaze if you want to add more glaze. Let the cake and the glaze rest for about 5 to 10 minutes. And when you're ready, serve and enjoy.